Yo, and we're live. Welcome to the Diren Kartal show. Okay, guys, what's going on? Today, I'm with my guy, Nick Karaiskos.
Well done.
I always get nervous about that. I don't know why, because this one time I was on stage, Nick, and I got someone's like surname wrong, and I was like, I've been so paranoid since. I was like, no, I can't get it wrong. I need to double check. But how are you?
Very well, thanks. Good to see you again.
You too. We saw each other last week.
We did, yeah.
You've been seeing a lot of me lately.
On and off, yeah.
On and off. Last week it was because of my dad, and me.
And you,
I guess.
Yeah, mainly because of the legends.
Yeah.
Kartal Senior.
Yeah. For you guys that don't know, my dad had a Sunday League game like last week, and he got in goal. My dad still plays Sunday League, and he went to save the ball. He saved it. He taught. What happened? You tell me. What was the injury?
He tore his bicep. Partially torn his bicep. I can't believe he's still goalkeeping at his age. But
you know what he said to me? He said like, oh, I didn't feel anything. I just carried on for the next 40 minutes or so.
I mean, that's what he played on, didn't he? So
yeah, that old school mentality.
Amazing, yeah. Top man.
He tore his bicep, and I didn't even say. I went to the house to see my parents, and when I was there, he had like ice. He's just had ice there, and I was like, what's going on, Dad? And he goes, oh, it's just I've got a bit of a bruise. And when he took it off, I was like, Big Mel, where's your bicep? What's going on? And then on top of that, I did my QL, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, my QL. And for the people that don't know Nick, you're not the biggest person on social media, are you?
Not really, no.
Is it because
I'm there, but no, it's not really my thing.
Why are you there?
Why am I there? Initially, it was just more to kind of keep in touch with friends and family. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I come from Greece, and a lot of my family is still there. I've got friends in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, America, South America, like a lot of my university friends. So it's nice to kind of keep in touch with each other.
But your accent's not a Greek accent, is it?
It is no. I spent 11 years in Glasgow, where I did my physiotherapy degree and my master's, before I moved down to London 2004.
Yeah. And I've known Nick since I was 17. Because I first came to you with that injury for my...
it was your groin, wasn't it?
It was my groin.
Adductor, yeah.
That's my adductor. And it was crazy because at the time, and all the physios that I worked with, not saying anything to NHS physios, any NHS physios listening to this, but everyone that I went to was like giving me a piece of paper and be like, just go do these exercises.
Yeah.
When I told them like the injury, and I was like, and I didn't know what it was like to experience, having a good physiotherapist. So I was just like, okay, cool, I'll go do this. And nothing was happening. The first thing they said to me was, yeah, you need to rest. You need to take, I think what they said was like 5 or 6 months off or something crazy. It was like, you need to take this much time off. This was over 10 years ago now. And I came to you, I got your contact through a friend of my sister randomly. And I went to come and see you. And I remember coming to see you, and I actually cancelled my gym membership thinking I need to rest. And the first thing you said was like, sign back up.
Yeah.
And my head was like, hold on a second, I'm injured. I shouldn't be trained. You get a lot of people that get shocked at that sort of like
Yes,
approach.
I do, yeah. And it's just a very common approach from probably more medics these days than physiotherapists, but like back then we're talking about 10, 12 years ago, the physios were the same, that they rest is the answer to an injury.
Yeah.
Which in some cases is correct, but you only really rest in the injured part.
Okay.
There's an awful lot of benefits of continuing exercise to any capacity you can. So we're talking about endorphin release, we're talking about, your body's natural own painkillers, which help with the recovery, reduce inflammation, reduce swelling, all those kind of things that exercise induces. So from my point of view, as much as the person exercise, I get them to do them. So you might have to rest the injured part for a short period of time, but I can't think of any disadvantage of exercise in general. Okay.
What was the natural painkillers that you just said?
Endorphins.
Okay. And you're saying that it just it reduces the pain, or it takes your mind off it?
It reduces the pain. It acts like a painkiller.
Okay.
So if you think of like in a simplified way, so that little fridge you got there, you've got one of them inside your brain.
Okay.
And it's full of all the medicines that you will go and get from any pharmacy.
Okay.
So the trick is knowing how to release it. Okay, they exist inside your body. The body is very clever in terms of having all the tools to protect itself.
Okay.
From, illnesses, viruses, injuries, the rest of it. So then if you go and you get, let's say, an ibuprofen off the shelf, then you inhibit the release of your natural anti-inflammatories.
Oh.
By allowing time and the body to heal and do the right things in terms of activity, movement, and exercise, then you stimulate the right medicines to be released by your own body, which is much more effective than what you get from the shelves. So majority of that stuff, it just triggers what's supposed to be released already in your body. Yeah.
How did I not know that?
I don't know.
How do I not know that? I always thought it was in the tablet.
Yeah. No, that's a natural part. That's a natural substance that is getting manufactured in a tablet, and the idea is to give you a boost and to get you probably there quicker potentially.
Okay.
But I mean, the research is probably a little bit ambiguous about that.
Okay, so what would you say, and what's the best way to get that naturally? Exercise or anything mentally, or?
Both. I mean, obviously the mental well-being and the physical well-being, they go together.
Yeah.
And that's another aspect of, talking about exercise when you're injured, because like obviously you yourself, you train a lot. I see sports people, I see people that just kind of recreational training and they get injured. And then one of the fears is that they can't train for a period of time. And that has an impact on them physically as well as mentally. So you probably, I'm sure you see a lot more people than I do with that, but their exercise is part of a weight loss process. And so when you stop that exercise, although the weight loss can still happen through nutrition, it becomes that mental block that they fear that they're going to put on weight. And then it triggers a stress response into the body, which kind of inhibits the recovery of the injury.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
So then by encouraging people to exercise, then you keep this process going. They're still losing weight. They're still keeping up with the program.
Yeah.
Potentially modified a bit to protect the injured part for a period of time. But yeah, I'm very big in terms of getting people to continue exercise as much as possible.
Do you think sometimes it's an excuse for people to stop?
An excuse to...
For example, I'm injured. I came in and I cancelled my gym membership. It was almost like maybe when I was a kid, I was like, oh, this is maybe a good opportunity to chill out. Do you reckon people... they actually want to recover quickly, or do you find that some personalities come in to see you and go, you know what, this is a great excuse to like not train for a while?
Yeah. I mean that's part of it. I'd say that's a minority, if I'm honest. But
yeah,
and that happens even at the elite sports level.
Yeah, okay.
You get people that not necessarily want to be injured, but they've got a natural talent, but they're not really prepared to put the hard work that's required to stay at that top level.
Yeah.
And then that injury is an excuse to say, I could have been, so much better, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, so then obviously they don't put as much in the recovery.
Yeah, I guess it's... I mean, you get the whole, when people... the whole story of how he didn't make it as a footballer or whatever. Whereas before it used to be like, yeah, I've got this injury. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm not good enough.
Didn't work hard enough, yeah.
I wasn't good enough. And do you think you treat a lot of athletes, professional athletes?
I do, yeah.
You've treated a lot of Premier League footballers?
I have, yeah.
Big names? Mm-hmm. Can you name a few?
I can, yeah. So I've worked with Dean Ashton at West Ham. So I used to work at West Ham. I was one of the physios for a good 10 years. So worked from the academy level all the way up to the first team. I had different roles in terms of part-time, full-time. Probably James Tompkins, the first person I ever treated at West Ham. He was 16 years old.
Oh wow! Okay.
He still looked as tall as he does now. But so I've been. So then throughout my journey, then I've been, since I left West Ham, it's actually opened the doors to other clubs to refer their players to me on a kind of either consultancy basis or occasionally I have been into the club to do some short-term work. But mainly they come to my clinics. And then we've also opened doors for me for like other sports like tennis and rugby mainly at the moment.
Yeah. And what are you finding? Because when I first came to, it was in Essex, wasn't it?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, in Essex. When I came in and I saw all the names on the walls, and I was like, I'm pretty sure there was a Beckham shirt there as well. Like, I think maybe
there was, yeah.
Maybe you treated, or I think your colleague treated, or something.
I think the Beckham shirt was more of a gift.
Oh, it was more of a gift, yeah.
A patient, but probably most of the others were people that have attended the clinic, yeah. Either with myself or my colleagues, yeah.
There were so many, right? And what would you say, like, the difference between that you treated with athletes compared to, say, general population? Which ones were more, I don't want to say full of excuses, but which one's more determined to like really get back on it? Or was it always like a personality thing?
I think it's more of a personality thing. There is some athletes that were extremely determined to get back as quick as they could. There was others that they were like, okay, let's take the injury, take its course. And others that were like, maybe, working kind of 70-80% to get back to, to playing. And I think it goes across the general population.
Yeah.
I think the difference is obviously when you're looking after an elite athlete and that's their job, the intensity or the frequency of how often you see them increases because that's their job and they want to get back as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously, if you have a full-time job and, family and the rest of it, then your recovery is probably not your biggest priority, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You must have dealt with a lot of dickheads as well.
I have done, yeah. Don't ask me to name any of them.
No, I'm not going to ask you to name, but a lot of like top athletes as well.
Yeah.
Are they sometimes because like, I don't know, when I come and see you, I feel like very grateful in the sense of, this guy is fixing me. I'll get into this mental state where I'm like, I'll pay, I will do anything. I'll cancel my whole day plans. I need to go see Nick so I can sort this, so I'm good mentally. Because when I'm not, I'm just like, oh shit, I can't do anything. I can't train. I mentally don't feel stable. So I feel like, thank you. I'm like grateful for it. Were you getting people that come in and were just like, I don't know, walking out without paying or something? Because footballers out, they get everything for free, don't they? Like that sort of stuff. Did they expect the same of you at that point?
Some of them, yeah. There's been a few that they refused to pay, or like they came in out of their own back, behind the club's back, and then they asked me to go and chase the club for the money. And, ask them, I was like, well, we didn't tell them to come there, so I don't know what you're asking us the money for. So,
and are we talking about Premier League?
Talking about Premier League,
like on 20-30 grand a week?
Yeah, and more. And
really?
More, yeah.
That's mental, isn't it?
There was one in particular, I'm not gonna name him, but his goal bonus was twice as much as he owed me. And in one game, he scored 3.
Oh, really?
That was shortly after we finished. And he was refusing to pay. He's like, well, that's how the principal of the club should pay it. So,
what?
Yeah.
That is crazy. And are you enjoying coaching? Because majority of it was football initially, right?
Yeah. Well, I was always Ham, yeah.
Okay, so are you enjoying other sports more than football? Because football, is it easier to treat or to coach people in football when it comes to, I don't know, like imbalances and stuff, say, compared to something like tennis? Because tennis, what I've realized noticeably is like most tennis players are fucked.
Yep.
Like, so are you enjoying those sort of challenges?
Yeah, massively. Yeah. I mean, the thing with the football is, if you think about the body parts that's getting used in football, is pretty much from the waist down.
Yeah.
So the upper body injuries, apart from your dad, I suppose, is very rare.
Yeah. Okay.
So you formulate a way of treating, knees and hips and groins and foot and ankle. So going into other sports, let's say I do a fair bit of work with rugby at the moment, and you just don't really know what the injuries, where the injury is coming from.
Okay.
So you might have, let's say, a forward that goes into a scrum and you're thinking probably the shoulders are in danger because of the impact, but the amount of force to generate through the legs is huge.
Okay.
And so you don't really know which body part is going to injured and how one affects the other. So, I saw somebody not so long ago with, he tore his medial ligament, a prop, and they assumed that his legs were weaker because his leg collapsed into a scrum in practice, luckily. But then he had this shoulder injury that, whether he didn't mention it properly, but he wasn't treated for it.
Okay.
But then obviously when you go into a scrum situation, you need your shoulder to hold your other person and then engage into the contact.
Yeah.
And to protect his shoulder, he was adjusting his low back, which put more pressure on his leg, and then his leg went. So I find that process a lot more challenging.
Okay.
And then is obviously rehabbing people back to, such a huge contact sport.
Yeah.
Which, I really enjoy it.
Okay. Cool.
And what I find, which is very, very useful, is like the communication between, let's say, the physios and the S&C teams of a rugby club is much, much better than the football. Football tend to be like, oh, you're not part of our team, we don't want to do anything with you. Whereas they're very cooperative and engaging, and, and a lot of times it's just it's a joint session.
Team effort. Do you reckon that's because from a cultural standpoint or because of the money? Because the football money is ridiculous compared to rugby.
I don't think it's the money. I think it's a cultural thing, but maybe that's kind of going together with the money. I think
there is more of an ego with footballers. I've noticed.
Yeah, I think so.
Like compared to like the rugby players I've met and stuff, they've always been like, I don't know, just rock up to a normal pub with you. They won't be like, let's book a table.
Yeah, that's it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead, we're like, you'd be like,
quite a few beers later, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, it is kind of different. Do you find that the communication between, like with general population, what I've realized is, say my dad or my mum, when I chat to my mum sometimes, she goes, oh, this hurts. And I'm like, I find it hard to get her to describe not only where the pain is coming from, but why it's coming. How important is that for a physio to like communicate well with like general population? Because I know a lot of people, a lot of clients I've had, they tell me, I've got pain here, but I don't think they describe themselves well to the physio that they go to, which means maybe the help is less. Would you say that's correct? Or?
Yeah, I mean, communication is a huge element of what we provide. And like a colleague of mine, he's done a really good piece of research. He just published a PhD on communication.
Okay.
And there's a lot of elements to it. There is how the physio is, or the clinician, how we approach the patient or the client, and how we speak to them, and how we kind of get through the interview process. Okay. And that's really huge. And whereas, like when I first trained, I used to turn up to see somebody, and I had a piece of paper with a body chart on it and some questions that I had to kind of tick. And, when you have that, you tend to follow that path.
Okay.
So you say, all right, well, is your pain this and this? Is your pain this and this? But I think by doing that, you might be missing, a big chunk of the story.
Okay.
So whereas obviously, as I get more experienced and as we develop our communication skills, I'm a lot more open.
Yeah.
You probably noticed with your dad last week, and, I said to him, like, what happened?
Yeah.
And then he started telling me the story.
Yes.
And then obviously I kind of dip in and out to pick information that I feel I need.
Yes.
Okay? And
you've been doing that for years.
I've been doing that for 20 odd years. Yeah. So it's for some, like obviously your dad's injury, which is like a torn bicep, it's a very clear mechanism. There's not really that much to it.
Yeah.
But then you see somebody with, let's say, 10, 15 years of chronic back pain or low back pain or shoulder pain or neck pain, or you see an athlete with like a knee problem that's been going on for years and years, and it's been managed, and then I tend to let people just kind of talk to me.
Yes.
And they go into places that you never really expect to, and then psychology and stress and all the other kind of environmental issues come into it.
Yeah.
So communication is really important, and then it's the other thing is like you have to make the person trust you. And if they don't, if you come in to say a story and the person doesn't listen to you, they're busy filling in questionnaires and ticking boxes, then you lose that trust. And when you lose that trust, they're thinking, well, let's get out of here because they're not listening to me again. Does that relate to it?
That's so exactly
going
what I do.
Back to what you were saying before with your groin, you go in, or I've got this groin problem, or there's your sheet of paper with the exercises.
Yeah.
But did they listen to you? What happened? How did you do it? That's one part. But then it's like, what are you looking to get to? You want to, I remember at that time you were looking to break into a potentially professional level of playing football.
Yeah.
Did they listen to that? Did they give you the tools towards that? Do they give you confidence? Do you know? No. And that's a big part of obviously what we do in terms of the communication element.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Because I do that with my coaching in the sense of I like listen.
Yeah.
And then I'll say certain things when the time is right. I'll try and not oversay something or say too less. I'll listen, because if you're not listening, then how are you supposed to approach it in a way they will understand?
Exactly.
I guess, you know?
Yeah, and there's different personalities, isn't it? So then some people you're going to be a lot more pushy with the questions, others you're going to back off a lot more.
Yeah.
And it's the same with training, isn't it? You're going to, you know, I'm sure somebody you want to push them into train harder, more times and more reps, and others will be like, back off and let them do their own thing. So
yeah, I get what is chronic pain?
Chronic pain, by definition, is something that's been there for a long period of time.
Okay.
And it depends what you read. So you're looking for like 3 months onwards.
Okay.
So in our kind of world, it's kind of changing more to persistent pain rather than chronic.
Okay.
So because you can be chronic as in, so you can be persistent as in, you'd be there for like 3 months and you have a break, and then it comes back for 4 months and you have a break for whatever reason. So it's just like a persistent pain. And
it could be targeted in one area, or it could just, because I do get people messaging me going, I suffer with chronic pain, for example. And I'm not saying I don't believe them.
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes it's just thrown out there. Do you find that happens a lot?
Yes. But I think there's reasons for it.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
Yeah, well, yeah. So, for example, you can have somebody that comes in with like, I think back pain is probably the most common area. I mean, if you're looking at the physiotherapy referrals, that's the highest body part that is hurting.
Oh, really? Okay.
And that's the one that people tend to have long-term problems with, more than, let's say, a knee or a shoulder.
Yeah.
And so in the pathology of back pain or in persistent back pain, what we know now, there's an awful lot of elements that contribute to it. So one of the myths is like that you have pain when you're damaged, which is extremely unlikely most of the time. Okay. So most of the time you have pain without any physical damage into your structures.
Okay.
So somebody might have, let's say, an episode of back pain lifting something heavy, 5 years ago. And they, like you are from your injury the other week at Jiu-Jitsu. And you thinking, all right, well, I lifted something heavy, I'll take a rest. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, have I done something? So you tend to start protecting the area and adjusting the way you move in order to protect it.
Okay.
Then, you kind of go like that for like maybe a month. You can have sometimes the pain comes back, because you do something. And then you're thinking, I better go and see a doctor. So you go to your GP and they'll be like, all right, well, I can't see anything there, but just take those painkillers, take some anti-inflammatories for like a couple of weeks and come back if it doesn't go. And you go back and you're thinking, well, it hasn't gone. Okay, let's send you for a scan. And then you go for a scan. And then by all this time, you keep telling that person that there's something wrong with the back.
Yes.
Right? So then it becomes a mental issue. Okay?
Okay.
And so the pain is there. The pain is physical. Okay? But it's no longer in the back, if that makes sense. It's more in the brain.
Yeah.
Yeah? And then you change in the way you're using your body, the way you're moving, the way you exercise even. Someone, oh, no, I can't exercise. I can't bend, I can't do this, I can't sit for too long. And all these normal things are actually helpful for the back. And, through the process, you stop doing them.
Yes.
And then it becomes like no more about the back anymore. It's just like...
The body's built to be active.
Yeah. Yeah. And something like the spine, I mean, if you look at the structure of the spine, you've got small bones and discs in between. It's something designed to move.
Okay.
And we tell people to not.
When they're injured.
When they're injured. Stay stiff, don't bend, sit this way, straighten your back.
Safe.
Yeah. Well, all it does, it actually puts more pressure on the structures.
Okay.
So it becomes counterproductive.
Why do you believe the most common injuries are back pain?
I think it's probably the part of our bodies that we fear the most because of, I think culturally, this is a sensitive area. We believe it's a weak area.
Yeah.
I think because it hurts more, and it probably hurts more because of the way we use our bodies. It's just where it is, it's in the middle of the body. So if you use your upper body, you use your back. If you use your lower body, you use your back. Yeah. So if you go like a physical or semi-physical job, then the chances are you're going to put some strain on your muscles at some point.
Yeah. Which
is quite normal. But I think we've got that fear about the back that is terrible.
The fear, there's even like, I don't know, something will happen with my mum, or she'll be, oh, my back. I'm like, it's like the most common thing that you hear.
Yeah.
My back this, my back that. Is it because it's such a, it plays a huge part in majority, like nearly all of your movement, I guess?
Yeah.
Or do you reckon it's like, how often do you get someone saying, I've got back pain and it's just some tightness?
I mean, from what I see, it's probably 80% of the time plus.
Really?
Yeah, 85 plus.
Oh, no way. And then that leads to other problems, doesn't it?
That leads to other problems, yeah, because then you've got, you know, the fear, you've got the inactivity,
yep.
You've got, you know, maybe weight gain potentially. Do you know, like so I'm not talking about structures, okay?
Yeah.
But the biggest predictor of back pain is depression.
Really?
Yeah. So there's no discs, there's no muscle, there's no broken bones or ligaments or anything like that. It's depression.
And is that like you've done research on that and you've seen all of that? Or?
I haven't done the research, but there's plenty of other people that have done the research. It's out there, and it's you know. I mean, for people that are interested in that, there's a guy called Professor Peter O'Sullivan. He's at Curtin University in Perth in Australia.
Yeah.
And he's done, you know, tons and tons of work. He's got an amazing team around him. So I'll encourage people to go and look at his research.
And what do you know about it?
In terms of,
as in, how much have you looked? Have you, after you've like say read about it and seen the research, what details can you give me about how you think that's created that?
Has created,
as in, you're saying it's created by depression,
right? Okay.
And then have you seen that?
Yes. So what we see with what we call the non-specific low back pain. So non-specific is classified as pain that you don't see a damaged structure on let's say a scan that relates to that pain.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say if we say you've got like a low back pain and then you have an MRI scan and you probably see something that's quite normal for somebody, let's say my age.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not a structural damage that causes the pain. Yep.
Yeah.
So then when we track the history of those people, so when I go and, like, you know, I was saying earlier with the open questions, right, well, tell me your story, what happened? And you go back, and when you've got this kind of big flare-up or the episode or the pain starts, so it might be something physical, like, let's say, lifting a box, but around that time, there's always, or the majority of the time, there's a big psychological event. So it could be like a family bereavement, or it could be a divorce, or it could be moving house, or changing jobs, or having a dickhead boss, or, you know, like all those kind of things that create psychological stress.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we build that stress, and some people express it physically. So then, you know, it creates tension on different body parts.
Yes.
And it's just how you hold your tension that creates the problem.
I'm not going to lie, a lot of times...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, a lot of sense, because a lot of times where I've got, I guess, injured is, I've actually been sometimes thinking about things that have caused me stress that day. So I'm not as relaxed in training sometimes.
Yeah.
So sometimes, say if it was sparring more aggressively than I would usually, for example, maybe. Or I've heard it with my clients where they've had a shit day and they just step off the curb and they twist their ankle.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
So you're saying it just like that mental state just tightens you up.
Tightens you up, yeah. So if you think about like a card radio, okay, and you think the volume button.
Yeah.
So that's what stress does. It turns the volume button up on your nervous system.
Okay.
And then with stress, we're talking about stress-related issues like anxiety, depression, fear, and lack or disturbed sleep. That's one big that people miss.
Yeah.
Okay, because they don't associate that with stress.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give you an example. I was treating this guy a few years back, and he came to see me with sciatic pain.
You know, I've got a lot of questions about that.
Yep,
we'll fire them away.
We'll fire them away. So he had sciatic pain, so he had back stiffness. He didn't have a disc or anything else that kind of block his nerve, but he had a lot of issues around anyway. So he was in a state of, he's a lawyer, working long hours, not exercising, ex-rugby player. He was probably about 4 stone overweight, but it was more the lifestyle. He had his own corner in a restaurant. He had his own table. He turned up for lunch every time, depending who he was meeting.
Yeah,
and they knew his meal, they knew his wine. It was a standard. That lifestyle. So anyway, we talked about this. So I hooked him up with a personal trainer at the gym. I was treating him.
Yeah,
he lost quite a bit of weight, but in general he got healthier.
Yes,
he controlled his food better. He wasn't drinking as much. He changed his hours. And sciatica went, so I didn't really see him for a while. I would see him in the gym around, but and then I got a message from him on one evening about like 8-9 o'clock, and he says, "Right, my sciatica's gone completely mad. I need to see you." And I was like, "All right." I had an appointment the following morning at 7 a.m. and I was like, "Can you make that?" He says, "Yeah, sure, I'll be there." So he turns up looking like shit, and I was like, "You okay?" He says, "Oh, I just came back from New York." And I was like, "All right, have you been on holiday?" He says, "No, I just had this crazy work trip that took him," I might get the towns wrong, but I'll be fairly close. So he went from London to Dublin, from Dublin to Reykjavik, from Reykjavik to Barbados, to Boston, to Georgia, to New York in like 6 days.
Jesus.
Okay, so if you think about the time zones alone, never mind like sleeping on planes. Yeah, I know he was flying business class and all that, but it's still, like the adjustment from one to the other. And then, he's a high profile the way he's doing. So obviously the stress of his job was huge.
Yeah.
So you tell me all that and I'm thinking like, I can't think it's going to be anything too physical with him. So then I assessed him. And he had, he could touch his toes, he could bend backwards, he can squat on one leg. There was nothing in his back to make his pain any worse. So I said to him, like, "I think you should just go and get some sleep." He says, "What, that?" And I was like, "Yeah, just like, it's nothing, I can't find anything on your back." So that's the important thing, is the reassurance. Right? So that's gone off his mind, right? Straight away, all right, my back is okay. Maybe my nervous system is amplified. So then he went to bed. I think he texted me the following day. He says, "I feel a lot better." So, but then we don't really recognize that as a problem, do we? Because it's not physical, isn't it? We're not lifting weights, we're not lifting boxes or working in a construction site. But it's so huge in terms of the physical pressure.
Yeah, 100%. I think Matthew Walker says like sleep is our superpower.
Yeah,
he says our superpower, and like I talk about this a lot. Even on every like kind of expert that I get in, like yourself, they always mention sleep.
Yeah,
they always mention rest, like recovery.
Yeah,
and I think people don't. And I guess technology being on your phone 24/7, it hinders. It makes such a impact on people. And what would you say to those people? Say that. Why should they prioritize sleep so much? If you were to give like 2-3 tips on that.
Well, I mean, because one is it comes down your nervous system.
Okay,
and that's the most important out of everything.
Okay,
because the nervous system is associated with pain from what I do, but you're also hugely associated with mental health, and they kind of go together.
Yes.
So obviously, if you sleep well, you're fresh, you much more energy, you can exercise better. You can be more active throughout the day. Okay, and there's actually an American lady. I can't remember her name, but I can find it, send it out to you.
Yeah.
She's done some research on recovery.
Yes.
And she looked into things like, cryo chambers and anti-inflammatories and NICE treatment and heat treatment and massages and foam rollers. And she decided that the best recovery tool is sleep out of all of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So she encourages, especially athletes, because they have more time to go and get a 20-minute nap, half an hour nap throughout the day.
Yeah.
Because it helps with the recovery.
Because isn't all of those things like, I don't know, even like getting in a float tank, meditating and all this stuff. Okay, I guess meditating is slightly different, but all of that stuff, the main foundation of that is if you sleep really well, you probably don't have to do all the other things like, I don't know, going into a sauna, I just need to relax, or and this and that.
And I think it's, I mean, I don't want to knock any of those things because they've got some values in terms of recovery.
Of course.
But I think what we see is just more that people develop a ritual of, right, well, I'm foam rolling, so therefore I'm doing something good for me. So then it reassures your brain that you're doing something good for your body. So it takes the element of stress out of it.
Yes.
Same with, you know, ice compression chambers and all the rest of it.
Yeah. And how, that the thing you said about reassurance, for me, that's a huge, like, every time I've come to see you, someone that I trust, when you've gone, Diren, just go spa, you'll be fine. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm going the next day.
Yeah.
And do you think that comes from your experience as a physio for, say, 20 plus years? Or do you think it's something, say, that's not taught in physiotherapy as much? Like, I don't know, obviously, I know what it's like with PT world, but like, is that, how much is taught to you when you're studying and stuff about the communication and the values about trust and stuff when you're treating people?
I mean, when I did it, it wasn't.
Okay, yeah.
It wasn't. There was talks about communication, but it was more and more about being punctual rather than, you know, make sure you don't miss any like red flags and yellow flags and those kind of things.
Okay.
Rather than see the bigger picture.
Okay.
And whether it's been taught at universities now, I don't know. I've been out of that circle for a while, so I'm not really sure. But I know there's a lot of work done. As I say, Ian Carlos, one of my colleagues, he's done his PhD on communication, and is extremely important. And I don't think if he's doing it now, I'm assuming he's not being taught at universities.
Okay,
does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And how often are you like? Because when did you get qualified?
2001.
Okay, so you got, that's a while back. 2000. You got qualified at 2001. Is there like, do you have to get updated on specific things every, say, I don't know how many years to keep your qualification or something as a physio, or after you're qualified, you're a physio forever and you can practice and you can treat people for however long?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case. So once you're qualified, you're a physio forever.
Oh, really? Okay.
There is some mandatory courses you have to do. Okay. But they are more on things like data protection and lifting and handling and, you know, first aid. And so it's not really things that improve your skills or things that tell you that what you're doing is still valid and correct. Okay. In a hospital setting, while I was there, there used to be like in-house trainings every so often. So one of the physios will pick up a topic and then just go and do some research on it and then go and present it to the colleagues. Okay, cool, which is quite good. That's good, yeah. From my point of view, I always felt that wasn't enough. So that would, you know, then I started going to external courses. Okay. So back in like early 2000s, I probably used to do maybe one a month or every 6 weeks. I was doing loads. I went some really, really good ones. I went some really, really shit ones. But I think you have to go to the shit ones to know the shit. So you don't make the same mistake. So these days I still do them. I probably do 2 or 3 a year rather than every month. So you can obviously, through experience, you learn who is good out there and you kind of tend to follow them. And
do you learn more by practicing what you do or through those seminars?
Both.
Okay.
So you learn something in a seminar and then you go and practice it. Okay. And then you see if it's working. Yeah. And then I think through experience, it's just like having a toolbox, isn't it? You throw more tools in it. Yeah. And then there'll be the one person that you might need in like 10 months later.
I did that with you a lot. When I came to you, when I was a lot younger, even now, because you notice, I mean, every time I come to you, it's probably like a podcast. I'm asking a million questions because then it helps me to understand, say, my clients more or why certain things happen. Yeah. Or even like when I did my groin really bad, I mean, after that, my legs were so strong. Yeah. After I paid so much attention to it. Yeah. And I understood like kind of what to do. And I was applying it with a lot of my clients before they even would get an issue with their groin. So I'm assuming it's like the same sort of balance of learning and applying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you get that through experience, you know, and you know, I'm sure I made people worse. Yeah, of course. because that's the nature of the beast. You obviously not consciously. I try to make them better, but you kind of pick up the things that work for certain people and not for others, and you just apply them accordingly.
Yeah. And what? Okay, so within your industry of not just physiotherapy, but like, I think you got like physical therapists and you have chiropractors. Like, what is the system? Because I know there's a lot of people that don't understand. Because I get a lot of people that see other people thinking they're physios. Mm-hmm. You're top of the food chain, aren't you? So, as a physio in that practice.
Yeah. So to be named a physio, you have to register with 2 organizations, the Health Professional Council, and your Chartered Society of Physiotherapy.
Okay.
And to do that, so to be a CSP physio, Chartered Society of Physiotherapy, you need to obviously finish a university degree in physiotherapy.
And how long is that?
So it's 3 years in a standard university. With some others that do it in 4, depends on what you do in between. There's placements and all that.
Yeah.
So there is lots of other professions that do similar things, if that makes it, like an osteopath or a chiropractor or sports therapists or...
I'm not going to lie, I don't know the huge differences between them. Could you tell me? Like, a sports therapist, what is that? So how is that different to a PT? I know it's going to sound not disrespectful, but like, I just don't know.
I think, and I might be completely wrong there, because I don't want to be critical of it, because I haven't looked at what they do at the syllabus, what they do at university. So I can't tell you what they qualify as. Yeah. But my understanding is they're not as qualified as us to assess and diagnose things.
Okay. And what sort of scale are we talking? Are we talking like...
I'd say it's probably an intermediate between a PT and a physio. So obviously you understand the body, you know how to train it. They'd probably be able to assess and diagnose more, but not as much as we do. That'd be my... Yeah,
because for me, I really find it hard. And this is no disrespect to anyone, because I know there's going to be some of you guys that are listening to this. I'm like, if I'm injured, I'm not looking at any of those. I'm thinking physio straight away. Mm-hmm. But I notice a lot of people go to these other people, which is, again, not a problem. But if you're injured, who should you go to?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there is those people, they're in a profession because they must be doing something right at some point, right?
Okay, yeah.
So, and I think that's the person's, so most times, you came to me through a recommendation, right?
Yeah.
So if, let's say, you were talking to somebody else and they had a really good experience with a chiropractor, they say, oh, go and see this guy.
Yeah.
Because he helped him. It might not be relevant to your problem, but they do it in good faith.
Yes. Yeah.
So obviously you're going to go to a different path. And if that's successful for you, then you're going to spread the word to somebody else.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the approach of what we do is different. We train different. We shouldn't really, because the body is the body. The body works the same way. Whether you're a doctor, a physio, a chiropractor, your body's moving the same way.
Yeah.
And if you understand the anatomy, the physiology, and the biomechanics of the body, you should treat it the same way.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be, different approaches in my mind anyway.
Okay.
So.
And what is, okay, so chiropractors are the ones that click your body up, right?
Yep.
Okay. What does that do? Again, no disrespect to any chiropractor. What do they do? Honestly, in the sense of, I know you go in there, and I know people go in there and you feel instant gratification when you like click this, click that. Like, I know, because even when I click my fingers, like, you just feel a sense of release. Or when someone clicks my back, I'm like, oh yeah, that feels loose, but then it tightens up again.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what they do is they manipulate joints.
Okay.
Now, in terms of what they say they do, that's where it becomes a problem, because when you say to somebody, oh, your back is out of line and I'm going to click it back in. Okay. So first of all, that doesn't happen. Okay. So you need quite a lot of force to get the back out of line, and you can't just click it back in.
What sort of force are we talking like?
We're talking like car crash.
Okay.
Right? Huge force.
Okay. So when someone goes, oh, I'm going to realign you.
Well, you don't really realign the bones. The bones are the bones.
Okay, yeah. But this is what people hear. So for me, it's like, I need to hear it from an expert.
Okay,
you know?
so you're creating a noise, which is cavitation, which is pretty much that.
Okay, really?
Okay, so it's just air bubbles popping. Okay, and that's research proven. So there's people that have done studies on dynamic MRIs, and they see the air bubbles within the joint, and they, as the wind up the joint to manipulate it, just kind of moves to the corner, then it just disappears at the popping.
Oh, so that noise is just that?
The noise is just that. So there's no bones going back in or going out.
And is that damaging? Like me clicking my fingers?
No potential, no. There isn't really any evidence to say that. We used to think that if you click your fingers a lot, it goes arthritis, but there isn't really anything into that.
Thank God for that. I can't wait to tell my mum that. Because every time I do this, she's like, Diren, what are you doing?
Yeah, so that's the belief system of an older generation. Yeah.
So you can't actually put bones back into place, or the bones are the bones, like you said, and then.
Have you ever dislocated anything? Have you dislocated your shoulder or anything like that?
When I was a kid, I dislocated my shoulder. Apparently, I was holding my mum's hand. She was trying to run away from her, and I pulled so far. Apparently, my shoulder, like my arm, the ball and socket popped out, and then they popped it back in.
So it's quite a bit of force, isn't it? And then so the bones, they don't really just pop in and out like that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, especially something like the spine, because if you look at the structure of the spine, it's designed to be, the bones do not move from each other; they stay in alignment.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you were to, let's say, take somebody without pain, let's say somebody who's very, let's say, right hand dominant. Okay. Okay. And you have them standing. I mean, you probably see that if you assess people when you first see them.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see that they're probably going to stand towards the strongest leg. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or the right side of the back, they're going to be more developed, or they have slightly bigger right calf or right bicep, okay? Because that's hand dominant.
Okay, yeah.
Okay? Now, if you were to take an x-ray of that person, would that spine look straight, or is it going to look more to one side?
It would look,
It would look more to one side, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you just do that without understanding how the body works and all the rest of it, if you just see the x-ray, you're thinking, this is out of line.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anybody re-x-ray after they put them back in to say, oh, look the difference. Okay?
Yeah. Okay,
so it just becomes a diagnostic tool, the x-ray, that looks, and to be honest, if we take anybody, I can't think many people that you could find nothing wrong with them.
Okay.
Nothing wrong as in from an anatomy book.
Because there's always going to be imbalances.
There's always going to be some imbalance, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's impossible not to.
When are those imbalances dangerous?
Well, the imbalances are dangerous when they start to create symptoms.
Okay.
Okay. And then you have to match that imbalance with the symptom.
What do you mean?
So like we were talking about the rugby player earlier with the shoulder.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you had an imbalance because he was underusing his shoulder.
Okay.
And he developed more strength or more bulk in one side of his low back, which put the other one into more vulnerable position.
Okay.
Okay. So from a physio point of view, somebody will come to me with pain.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I assess them, and then I see, well, you've got pain in your back when you're bending or whatever. Then you're looking up what the muscles are doing around it. Okay. And you're looking how the body's moving, how the legs are moving. And then you match in that picture with the symptoms. Okay. Okay. And then you see if the imbalance is relevant.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So, for example, I had somebody, he came to see me the other day, and he says he didn't have actually any pain at all.
Yeah.
But he was a 17-year-old boy. He's finishing his A-levels. But he came in sitting like that.
Yeah.
Very slouched, round shoulders. And his mum was worried that he's going to develop shoulder pain.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, stand up. It's like, can you lift your arm up? So then his shoulder blades went back to a normal place before he lifted his arm up. So to me, that's not an imbalance. That's just like poor sitting posture.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So but if you just take that posture into an x-ray, you're thinking he's fucked.
Yes.
Right? So it's just putting everything into context.
Yeah. But then he has to, say for someone like him, he has to like be a bit more conscious of being in an upright position to, I guess, not build that habit. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Which can then potentially have an injury later on with an activity or something.
Potentially, yeah.
Something as simple as like, I don't know, the people, and I've had this before, like on my phone so much, and my neck is like not where it's supposed to be.
That's it.
My neck being forward, my shoulder going forward, then doing jets, and then I've got something wrong with my shoulder. When really I come and see you, and you're like, yeah, just bring your shoulder back.
Yeah.
And then move how I should be moving.
Yeah.
And do you think, so a lot of the times when people are getting injured, do you reckon a lot of the things are down to not knowing how to move? Because you see some people, even like you get some people to run and they don't even know how to run.
I think, yes and no. I think running is quite complicated movement for our brain to process while we're doing it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so it's quite difficult to adjust. So the way the brain works and the way the body works, so the brain is picking up pictures, okay, and movement patterns. It's not picking up individual muscles.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're going to open the door, you're not going to say, deltoid, lift my shoulder up, bicep, do this, right? So the hand is going towards the door. So it's a coordinated movement of a complex muscle system. Yeah. Right? So they're all going to work in coordination.
Yeah.
So the brain is thinking, right, I need to do the task. So I need to run. So you're asking the body to run. So he's going to run.
Yeah.
Okay. What it's going to try to pick up is what's the most efficient way to run with what I've got. Correct? So if, let's say, your right glute is imbalanced compared to your left,
yes,
you still can run.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be as efficient. So it's going to find something to compensate for that weakness or imbalance.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you were to run to catch the bus, it's no problem.
Yeah.
But if you're doing 3-5 Ks a week, over a period of time, it will become a problem.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course, makes sense.
Yes.
I don't know, like having...
So, somebody that might not know how to run is because either they haven't done it, so they haven't got that brain experience, the skill, or they haven't got the tools to do it.
Okay.
Okay. So then obviously that's where you come in to break down that. That's what we're talking about, functional training. So functional training is not doing squats all day long.
Yeah.
That's part of the function, but it's breaking down the end activity and put it all together again. Yeah. It's like a Lego system, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. But which is why it's so important for people to understand how to move properly, right? Before, I guess, they hit high intensity with training. Because I'm sure you get loads of athletes coming in, I don't know, like lifting, bodybuilding athletes or whatever, that can probably squat, I don't know, 150 kilos or whatnot, but they're probably stiff and everything else and probably get stupid injuries. Like what to you is functional training, for example? What is like, I see it as everything's functional. Everything that I do is functional. What to you is functional training?
I mean, functional training is you're working backwards from the end product. So what are you training for?
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So are you training to lose weight, drop calories, or are you training to do a sport, or are you training to look a certain way?
Yeah.
Like bodybuilding, whether it's conditioning, whether it's, whatever. So for example, for a runner, functional training is the tools that are going to help them to run better.
Okay.
More efficiently, quicker, injury-free.
Okay.
So that's how I approach it.
That's how you would, okay, I get what you mean.
So now it's slightly different from between myself and you when it comes to training, because obviously people come to me with pain.
Yes.
And they say, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So then that path is a lot easier because I'm thinking, all right, to do this. So for example, to run, let's use a knee injury, for example. Somebody comes with an knee injury, can run.
Yeah.
Okay. So normally the question is, when can I run? And my answer is when you can jump repetitively on one leg. Okay? Because if you can't do that, you can't really run, can you?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh yeah, okay. So then what tools do you need to jump on one leg?
Yeah.
Right? So
you did that with me as well. Yeah. Yeah.
And you kind of work backwards. To me, that's functional training.
Okay.
So if somebody's a weightlifter and they want to do power snatch, whatever kilos, then my approach will be different.
Okay, I get what you mean.
Okay, so then some of the elements will be the same, and there's nothing wrong to divert from that training for variety as long as there's some kind of correlation to it.
Okay.
But that's functional training.
How many times have people have come to you and got injured from running?
Oh, loads.
Because I have this debate where I ask people, people are like, I want to run a marathon. I'm like, why? Usually they don't like to admit that I know it's for fat loss a lot of the time. They want to lose weight because that's the first thing they think about.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, if you're really overweight and you just start running, that's a lot of stress on your body, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of, how much impact are we talking? Like how damaging is it for an overweight person to like do a lot of running, for example?
In one word, is no.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so it's all about the conditioning. So is your muscles prepared or strong enough or conditioned enough to carry that weight for the distance you're asking it to do it?
Okay.
Okay, so that's what the question is.
Is it robust enough to...
Is it robust enough,
yeah.
You know, and if you haven't run before, if you know an experienced runner, then are you taking enough time to condition yourself to run a marathon?
And what about bones?
The bones, they tend to get stronger with the load.
Yeah.
Okay, so do the muscles. Like, you know, that's what we do. You know, when we do resistance training, you increase the load into it and then they get stronger.
You create stress and it grows from
so there's some research into, they did in Australia, between, I think they were like 18-year-olds, swimmers and runners at like, you know, high level. And they found that the bone density of the runner's leg was much higher than the swimmers, which makes sense because the exercise is weight bearing. So they had bigger, stronger bones. So not necessarily healthier, but bigger, stronger bones.
Does this mean me being a chubby kid or a chubby teenager at the time is benefited me now because I've got maybe more bone density from running?
You probably have, yeah.
I've always thought that, but I didn't actually know if that could be a thing because I always knew like more weight bearing stuff. If you're, because you get, for example, like you see like the Samoan rugby players, the islanders.
They're ridiculous, aren't they?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm like, you animal, how do you move like that?
Yeah.
And he's been moving like that since he was a kid because he's always been thick, right? And you look at him and then you look at someone else and you're like, he's so much bigger. He's definitely way more dense. If he hits you and you see him running a lot faster than some guys that are way lighter than them because they've obviously been conditioned and their body is now robust enough to take that, say, impact. So would that person, for example, do you reckon become a better athlete if they were to lose weight? Because I've always, and maybe I'm wrong with this, a lot of the time when my clients have gone, Diren, how do I get fitter for running? Like the ones that are overweight. And I'm like, probably the quickest way for your fitness to go up, your cardio is dropping a few kilos when there will be less stress when you're running. Is that wrong or is that right?
It's not wrong.
Okay.
But it's not 100% right either.
Okay, cool.
Okay, because I think, so if the weight loss is combined with a conditioning program, then that's spot on. Okay. But generally, if, you know, the people that want to get fit and they do the right conditioning accompanied with, you know, good lifestyle and foods, then they'll get there anyway. Okay. But dropping a massive amount of weight without your muscles get conditioned at the same time is probably not going to do that much.
Which is why it's important to mix, I say, resistance training with, say, running.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then you get a lot of people that just do running. Boom.
Yep. And it's quite interesting because you see, it's coming up to marathon season now, and I see a lot of marathon runners.
Yeah.
And some of them are really fit, really well conditioned and good, you know, good body, good physiques, and they get injured. And then when you track the story, because obviously marathon training is very time consuming. So you might have somebody who's like, say, an office worker and they go to the gym 3-4 times a week and they do some cardio and they do some weights and they do, you know, whatever. Excuse me. And then to train for the marathon, they go and run. So then they stop all the conditioning work.
Okay, yeah.
So what happens then, the body becomes imbalanced. Okay. So then knees start to hurt or calves or shins or whatever. And then they say, well, you know, I've been running all this time. And I was like, yeah, but you stopped doing the bits that help you running better.
Okay.
Which is your you know, your squatting, your lunging, your spin classes, for example, you know, things that condition your legs without, you know, doing too much with it. And then obviously when you go into running, you stop all that, your body's not conditioned to carry on doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So that's why I was actually going to ask you that as well. Like, say like the energy systems that you're working when you say doing like 10 reps with this much load or whatever, and then running on top of that. how beneficial is that resistance training? And how should I split it, say, with my client, where I'm like, hey, Diren, I want to start running. Would it be like, okay, let's ease off with like 2 days of running with a 3-day weight split or 2-day weights training? Like, how is that beneficial, and how would you balance it out to someone that's a beginner?
I mean, that's quite individual, I think, and genetics play a big part in it. Previous experience plays a big part in it. Athletic build, conditioning, plays a big part in it. But if you were to take like a complete novice runner, somebody who hasn't run a lot for 10, 15 years, they don't do much exercise, they won't do the marathon, I'll probably aim to do a 3 and 3 split. Okay. 3 runs, 3 resistance training. And then it's a bit of a trial and error, because if that doesn't work, then you might have to alter it.
Yeah, because then it also depends on their mental state as well, right? Yeah, if it's too much, if it's too little, or whatnot.
So the other thing is, like, then obviously with the running, then again, I kind of tend to work backwards. Even if it's somebody says, oh, I just want to finish it. And I'll say, well, just give me a time. Think of a time that you've got in mind. And then you work backwards from that. So then you adjust the running training towards the end goal. Yeah. So if somebody wants to do it in like 6 hours, then your running sessions are going to be different. Somebody wants to do, let's say, 4.5.
Yeah.
Okay. And I always think that you work on the speed, that you work on your endurance, and as well as your distance. Okay. So, for example, if somebody says, I want to do a marathon in like 4 hours, and then the 400 meters is like 2.5 minutes, it's just not happening. Okay. So you have to bring it down to work on the 400, 200, and 100 meter sprint or speed, because that translates into the longer distance. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because when I had my groin injury, the stuff that you were telling me to do, and then the stuff I was doing with you, that you were training me, you were getting me to do like the conditioning after we built some strength back. Yeah. And then you were getting me to do like agility stuff, say with a band around my waist, and then telling me to do the conditioning outside, like building the conditioning, building my legs up, and then overloading with you. With like agility stuff that's testing my groin more and stuff. So it's just like a slow build, right?
Yeah, it's just a structured program rather than a slow build. And some people will be slower than others, some people will be faster than others. But I think doing it that way, so working forwards from the conditioning and backwards from the sport point of view, I think you're not cutting any corners. You cover every basis. Yeah. And because really, I'm not. So my thinking as a physio is not like, all right, you fix your shoulder, what are you going to come back with? I want you out and not come back. Yeah. Right? So I want to make sure that we put all the systems together so you go out and enjoy what you're doing. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
I don't really want repeat work for the same problem. I question myself if I do that.
That's one thing I respect you so much for. I remember the first time I was like, because every other physio I went to initially, like before that, I was like, so how often do I need to come see you? They were like, yeah, I would come in every week. You're like, no, go off, do this. Message me if it doesn't work. Yeah. When I had the way bigger injury, then you were like, come every whatever, so we can check and do this. It's different. Yeah. But then a lot of times you're like, no, go work on it and then let me know, which is not what a lot of people do. And with is that because you're too busy, or is that because you just...
No, it's not because I'm too busy. I mean, it's like, obviously you have to look after your clients individually, right? Yeah. So you understand training, you know how I work, and I know how you work. Yeah. So if I say to you, go and do this and this and this, I know you're going to do it. Yeah. I know you're going to do it in a certain quality.
Yes.
Okay. And I think, again, over the years, I think you judge the person that's going to do what you tell them. Yeah. And sometimes, there is some people that I see every week, because that's like an ACL injury, for example, a surgery. Yeah. They need to be seen frequently because you progress when they're ready. Yeah. And you can't just say, well, do this for 1 week and then do this the next week and then that, because I don't know if the quality of what they're going to do is going to be good enough to enhance the recovery. So, but generally, if things are like imbalance require some either a gym exercise or home exercise, as long as I'm satisfied they do the exercise correctly, I give them the free to go.
Yeah, I get you.
Because going back to what we said about chronic pain before, like, when you're managing pain, what you don't want to do is to people to depend on you. You want, it's just a management thing that you can do yourself.
Yeah.
And if you do yourself, that's where I want you to get to.
Yeah.
So you have the tools to do it.
Of course, yeah.
Because it's not just like treatment as in hands-on or manipulation or whatever. It's taking the tools to stop this problem returning. And generally it's a lifestyle thing, where this involves exercise, nutrition, sleep, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And with injury, say, for example, I've come to you with an injury. You've given me rehab exercises to do. I've done it for a bit. I haven't done it to an extent where it's actually strong enough, say like an ankle injury or something.
Mm.
And the time has helped recovery, but not necessarily built strength to what it was or what it should be.
Yeah.
What percentage of the injury that you had will happen again if you don't do the right rehab? Is there like a specific percentage? Has there been research on it, or is it?
I'm not aware of a specific percentage, but I can talk to you from my experience.
Yeah.
So before I became a physio, I was a basketball player back in Greece, and an ankle sprain I've done over 30 on each leg, and so I think I've been my own kind of personality, I suppose, but lack of advice and probably
at the time.
Yeah. And, going back to early mid-90s, so it's like different times.
Yeah.
I don't think I missed more than 1 or 2 games out of all. I was playing with strapping on top of strapping on top of strapping. So because of my desire to play.
Yes.
Right. So because, I'm sure you played sport and you feel insecure that you're going to lose your spot, or you
position in the team.
The team's going to lose and it's your fault. And it's all those things that go with a professional sportsman. And what's that left me is with a residual weakness, because my ligaments are completely damaged. So they don't come back.
Oh, really?
And, provided I'm exercising regularly, I can function to a pretty good level. There is the odd time that I'm walking down the pavement, there's a little slab and my ankle will go over.
Really?
There's not much I can do about it. But if I go back to the 17-year-old Nick, and if the physio, again, I was told to have 2 weeks rest. We used to call our physio 2 weeks rest man, because with everything you went in, it was like, I have 2 weeks off.
That's so funny, because we had one when I was playing in Turkey, and it was the paracetamol guy.
Yeah.
They give you a paracetamol. Take these 2 tablets, you'll be fine.
Yeah. 2 weeks. That's what you say, 2 weeks. So if I've gone back and I've done what I tell my people to do, I probably wouldn't have had it again. Or if I did, it would have been not to the same extent.
I'm lucky I met you at 17 then.
So, yeah.
And say you said with like the ligaments, what after a while they can't rebuild? Or if it's like...
So, no, the ligaments, they don't tend to rebuild.
Okay.
So it depends really on the extent of the injury.
Yeah.
So if you think of the ligament's an elastic band that hold the bones together.
Okay.
So if it snaps completely, the fibers go apart.
Okay.
Right? So they can't
rebuild.
If they find something else to attach on it, then they will. So while they're still alive, there's a period of time that they can reattach on. It could be the bone, it could be a muscle, it could be a tendon. And if there's a bridge to bring them together, over time there will be some closing.
Yeah. Similar to like the bicep being partially torn?
Yeah. Okay. So the muscles, they tend to, because of the size of them, in the vast majority there is something to reattach on. Over time as they close.
Yeah.
So the ligaments, because of where they are and they're not really attached on muscles, they tend to either go. When they go, they go.
Okay. That makes sense.
So then depends on what part of your body and what support there is around it to see if you can function.
Okay.
At what level you can function. And then genetics play a big part in it.
Okay. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you next. How big does genetics play in all of this?
It's big. It's a big part.
Very big.
Very big, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I couldn't really tell you with every individual injury how much genetics is in it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for example, you see you see athletes and they do an ACL and they do another ACL and they do a tendon on something else, and then you're thinking, are they taking steroids or this is something genetically? And if you're looking at the elite level, probably unlikely to be on performance-enhancing drugs because of the monitoring. And let's say for a footballer, they probably not getting much gain out of it anyway.
Yeah.
So then you're thinking, must be something genetically. Okay.
Yeah.
So hormonally, we know that like high estrogen levels are associated with ACL tears.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't wait to tell my mate that. Ali.
So
he's had like 3 knee reconstruct, like he's had 3 or 4 operations on his legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is a huge genetic link.
Okay. And the ones that recover quicker are what, more high test or like high testosterone levels? Or is it like, it just depends in the sense of, you said there's been research on high estrogen with ACL tears. And
so you see like females during the cycle, there's part of the cycle that they're more prone to soft tissue ligament injuries.
Yes. Okay. At a certain time, which is why they need to take it easy.
Yeah.
In the cycle and recognize. They need to be their own best scientists when it comes to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because they always, I have this chat a lot with my clients. I'm like, you need to take it easy. You're emotional, your motor skills are not on point. Because you're not as strong either, are you, at that point in the cycle? You're not as strong either. All of those things just add up to potential injuries.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
And how many people have you treated that have come to you for that reason?
Because of that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, a fair amount. Loads. Problem is, again, obviously when they come to me, is not that relevant anymore because the injury already happened.
Yes.
But then going forwards, for example, I had this female young boxer not so long ago, and to me that was like a part of the cycle, like the menstrual cycle, that exposure to the injury.
Yeah.
And then we talked about it. And then the other problem is, so she understood it, her mum and the dad very supportive over it, and obviously, they're actually delighted because there was, a reason for it. Yeah. But then the coach wasn't having it. Oh. And he's like, well, I've trained so many people, nobody ever had that problem before. And I was like, well, it doesn't matter, she does, so then you have to look after her. And like, if she's during that period, you have to adjust to what, I never said don't train her, because that's not, as I said at the very beginning, no training is not an option for me. But you have to adjust what you're doing. You can still benefit a boxing training by not doing heavy sparring or, whatever.
A lot of PTs have this problem as well. They go in, say Susan goes and does her back squat. Her back squat is, 30-40% weaker than it is usual. He's there screaming in her ear going, go, push. When he doesn't know that, just put on the leg press, mate. Or if you are doing a squat, just take it easy. Yeah. And then it creates an injury, and then it creates stress for that person and whatnot. It's crazy to think even now, like, you're getting a boxing coach that's like still
there is, I think another part of the problem is that there is that, I don't want to say stigma because it's not, but I think females are kind of feel a bit, they don't really want to say that's the period. Do you know? Like,
yes, I get what you mean.
And then they're like, oh no, I better not tell them that. There is a embarrassment to it, which obviously shouldn't be there because it's for their own good.
I think that, and if they're really competitive, they might not want it to stop there. Yeah. Almost in like denial. Maybe just like, nah, I'm not going to let it. I'm going to block this out. I'm going to train harder this week or whatnot. You know?
There was a really good program actually a while back on Sky with Judy Murray.
Oh yeah.
She was talking about women in sports. She interviewed, she was excellent actually. Interviewed a bunch of female elite sportsmen like Victoria Pendleton and Natasha Jonas and Kelly Holmes.
Oh yes.
And a few others. But that was something that came up a lot. And especially the older ones, they were like, you wouldn't go in there telling your coach that you can't train as hard because they're going to ruin you. But then you're thinking about that's completely normal biology. There's nothing you can do about it.
You can't do anything about it.
You have to respect and approach it the right way and control it. And it's for the benefit of your athlete, isn't it? So
I can't imagine what it's like somewhere like Turkey, if I'm being honest.
I can imagine it.
I think it would be like, from a cultural standpoint, a lot of women wouldn't even talk to men about that in Turkey, let alone their coach. Maybe not everyone, but it depends on, I guess, on their relationship. But then like a lot of those sports wouldn't even look into that, because even if you look at like S&C and just physios in some of those other countries that maybe that are more behind, it's so behind that it's probably slowing their performance down with majority of the sports that the country is doing, right?
That's right, yeah. But slowing down the sport is one thing, exposing them to injuries is another one, isn't it?
Yeah, which then slows it even more.
Yeah.
Especially for highlights.
It's like the welfare, obviously, the person. That's the most important part.
Exactly. All right. I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of questions here. I'm going to pick just some, because I told like my audience, I was like, oh, I got my physio on, he's an absolute legend. And there's, okay, getting a few here. All right, question. There's one question about like stretching and stuff, but I'm going to tie it into something that I think will benefit a lot of people as well as the person that asked. Stretching. Dynamic or old school stiffness static?
Well, you know the answer because we've gone through a few times, but it's definitely dynamic.
Okay, yeah.
So stretching, I don't quite like the word of it. I like more like mobility.
Okay.
And it is preparing your body for an activity.
Yeah.
Okay. So if the activity is walking to the train station, then generally you start a bit slower and then you pick up if you have to, right? And that's your mobility work.
Okay.
Okay. So you don't need to stretch your shoulders and your neck to walk to the train station.
Yeah.
Right. But then obviously if you go to the gym and you're looking to go on the leg press, there's no much point doing shoulder mobility, is it? Because you're just going to be sitting there and you train your legs, right? So there is, so static stretching is of very little benefit to the body.
Okay.
Okay. It does very, very little. It gives you, so I'll give you an example. I was on a stretching course, it's called PNF, Proprioceptive Mass Facilitation. And we've got the straight leg raise test to test the length of the hamstring.
Yeah.
So in the PNF, so the person's holding your leg up, and then you're pushing against it, and then you've got a short period of release, and then you can push it further.
Yeah.
So I was the model. So I went from about 80 degrees to about 110, 120 through the PNF. So I gained all this mobility. So I stood up, I did 5 squat thrusts, went back on it, and it was back to the very beginning. Right? So the static stretching, the benefit is not lasting.
It's not lasting.
Okay. Then you're going back to the functional element of it. Okay. So you train your body the way you use it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're running, do you need loose muscles?
You'd need the opposite, right?
You need the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay. You need the muscle to loosen up when you need it to relax, and you need it to stiffen up when you need it to.
Okay. Yeah.
To stiffen up. Otherwise, you just, like if I was going to do a bicep curl.
Yeah.
Okay. So the bicep is not the only muscle that's working. My tricep is working at the same time to slow down that movement. Otherwise, it's just a non-stop movement, isn't it? And it's a concept we call the active stiffness.
Okay.
Okay. So when you're active, you want something to stiffen up and something to move.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's how you control movement.
Yeah.
And so rather than thinking about stretching to spend, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of going through all the body parts, I'll be thinking more of a mobility workout.
Okay.
Okay.
So what is mobility? So say the difference between mobility and stretching. Is the stretching more so, say, for the muscles and mobility for joints, or how would you?
No. So the muscles move joints. Okay. Right? So then when you stretch a muscle, you affect the joint automatically. Okay. All right, okay. Cool. So if you're going to do a quad stretch, as in bring grab your foot behind your back, then your knee is completely bent. Your knee flex. Right? So then the idea that you're stretching your quad muscle. Okay. Okay. But you can do that in a more dynamic way. Let's say if you do a correct lunge. Yeah. Okay. So you're still in the same position, but then you're using other body parts to control that movement. Okay. Which again, back to what we were saying before about how the brain approaches the muscles. Okay. So you've got that functional element of it. Okay. So if you mobilize a certain way that's similar to the activity you're going to do, it's carried on. Okay. All right. Great. Okay? So there's a colleague of mine. He works down at Bristol. I think he's Bristol now, and he was employed by UEFA to do some research on hamstring injuries. And so basically, with the exception of a few clubs, every hamstring injury, he tested them. So you had a device to test the flexibility. And so the theory before the study was that the hamstring that's injured is weaker and it's stiffer. Okay, but he found consistently that the hamstring that was injured was the looser one.
Oh,
the one that was
really?
more, yeah. And then it goes back to the active stiffness we were talking about.
Okay.
So you haven't got the capacity to contract when you want it to contract, i.e. a high level sprint. Okay.
Makes sense.
So then you condition it to sustain that training.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Because I feel like there's this whole idea of like, need to be really flexible to get the most out of, I don't know, muscle growth or movement and all of that. But that's not.
It's not accurate. It is within context.
Okay.
Okay. So obviously, I'm a swimmer. So I swim like with a swimming club, a master's level.
Yeah.
And, I need flexibility to bring my arm above my head. I need to be able to stretch, right? To stretch my arm forward to pull water.
Yeah.
But for a boxer, you don't need that same amount of flexibility.
No. Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense.
So it doesn't mean that if you have that, it's going to be counterproductive.
Yeah.
Okay. But looking for it to improve your boxing capacity, it won't do that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I've also got like, regarding around tight hamstrings, does this affect movement in exercise? My RDO is still causing some niggles in my middle back. So I wonder if this is due to having tight hamstrings.
Yep. So, that's the kinetic chain. So you're looking at the posterior chain. So you've got your low back muscles, your glute muscles, your hamstring, your calf.
Yeah.
Okay. Without going into the upper back.
Yeah.
So then if we're thinking of the chain, if one of the links is weaker or broken, then obviously it's going to have a knock-on effect on the other ones.
Okay.
Like I said about the rugby player earlier.
Yeah.
So then is it a case of just lying down and bring your leg up? Or is it a case of moving your hamstring more dynamically in the way that you use your body?
Okay.
Okay. Or is it something that, let's say, is your glute hamstring ratio wrong and you need to work on your glute more to take the pressure off your hamstring?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of times people that will improve hamstring flexibility by doing squats.
Because it's a very functional movement, right?
It's a very functional movement. And then it's not because the squat is stretching the hamstring, it's because he activates other muscles that take the pressure off it.
Yeah. You know what? It's mad. When I've got tight hips and then doing a squat with load loosens my hips sometimes.
Yeah.
My hips just loosen up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I forgot about this.
You think the opposite, wouldn't you? You think, I'm compressing the hip, it's going to make it worse. But what you do is you're stimulating the opposite chain, so agonist and antagonist.
Yeah.
So you create imbalance.
And it's loosening up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mad, isn't it? Like so many people have got all of this so wrong, where like someone trains, gets a little injury and they just stop. They don't think about, and even because there's so much, I guess, to think about. And it is, I guess, a lot of detail to most people that don't understand training. So even me, like, I understand training, but I still sometimes forget these basic things. When we're stretching or being dynamic, is it more beneficial to do it with load?
Again, it's getting from where you are to where you want to be.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So there might be a transition between no load and load.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So if you're going to go and squat and you're looking to do a PB of 180 kilos, it's unrealistic to go from a body weight to 160. Okay. So then you mobilize your body with incremental increase in weight.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. How important is having a strong core? I guess like I know the core is important, but I think the way that person wrote is also referring to like, is it used a lot when we're lifting heavy in say just compound movements, or do you have to isolate it to have a strong, or again, does it depend on?
Okay. So that's probably about a 3-day workshop this. So what would you perceive as the core?
I'll perceive it as this section of my torso that needs to be strong and robust for my activities, I guess. That I need.
So you're talking about your abs?
I'm talking about my abs and behind my abs, or that whole midsection.
Okay.
That whole midsection.
Because really, but the definition of the core is anything between the bottom of your skull down the top of your hips.
Oh, really?
Okay, so we're looking at that midriff, the body part without the arms and the legs, right?
Technically, the actual core.
The actual core. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
Okay, and so if we go back to what I've been saying about functional stuff, then your core doesn't work on its own.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you do a squat, part of your core will work.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you're sitting there, if you put your hands on your hips, okay, and dig into your lower abdominal muscles.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can find them.
So, okay. So if you just straighten up, what happens to them?
Oh, they engage.
They engage. Okay. So if you relax back,
they're not engaged.
They're going engaged, right? Yeah. So it's all movement related.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So then, is it realistic for you to go and do tons of lower abdominal exercises?
Yeah.
To sit down? No. So you just have to sit a certain way if you want, Yeah. So then, I personally don't do any kind of isolated stomach exercises.
Yeah.
I don't encourage people to do them. I encourage them to do functional stuff. So we know that if you break your back down, when you're using your legs, so there's no way you can use your hips without using your lower part of your lower back, of your lumbar spine. Okay? So anytime you do anything with your hips, which is squat, deadlift, lunge, step-ups, running, you're training your lower part of your core.
Yeah.
Okay? Anything you do for your upper part, you're training your upper part of your core. Okay? So if you throw a punch as a boxer, or you do like a wood chop movement, is that right?
Wood chop movement.
So then you utilize the diagonal sling of your body.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So what you need to do is you need to involve your core muscles into your body parts. Okay. So that again goes into a functional movement.
Yeah.
Now, there's nothing wrong with doing abdominal exercises. Okay. So if you're a bodybuilder and you want your stomach to look a certain way, I know it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more to do with food than it is with sit-ups.
Yeah.
Yep. But there's nothing wrong with them, provided you don't do them in a way that compromises your overall muscle balance, put pressure on your back.
I know this was over 10 years ago, but do you remember me telling you why I think the groin happened, why you told me after the activities I was doing?
I can't actually know.
It was me teaching loads of abs classes in Fitness First as a PT.
Right, okay.
A million crunches for no reason.
Yeah.
You said that created...
You overloaded
it for no reason. Mm-hmm. And then which ended up injuring my groin.
Yeah.
Since then, I've done nothing specific to my core other than stuff like Palloff pressing and wood chops and all of that sort of stuff. That stuff that's in dynamic. So for people that even want abs or want to work their core, I'm probably loading my core more if I'm lifting over my head and stuff, right?
You do?
You do, right? A lot more compared to just...
So if you do pull-ups, I mean, your upper core is working like crazy.
Yes.
Okay. So if you do squats with like some resistance, whether it's front squat, back squats, anywhere you hold the weight, your lower core is working hard.
It's working really hard.
You know, do you remember we did some squats on the Bulge trainer before?
Yes.
When you had your groin?
Yes.
I remember shaking.
Yeah, because there was no strength there.
Right? So then, but it was all working around your lower core area.
We did a lot of core work on the Swiss ball that I still use today.
Yeah.
The dynamic stuff, stirred apart.
Right. Without isolating though.
A lot of people listening to this would have used that. And that's because of Nick, by the way. That's because of Nick.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're right, actually. And it was crazy, actually. All of it was all dynamic and it was all that whole mid section.
Yeah.
Would you say, because it's funny, even like, I'm not sure if you've heard of him, he's Sonny Webster, his Olympic lifter, a friend of mine.
I follow him on Instagram. Yeah, I like his stuff.
His core is ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's just so thick. Sometimes when he puts on a t-shirt, you might think he's a bit chunky.
Yeah.
He takes his shirt off and his abs like,
I know.
It's just thick.
Yeah.
It's like a wall from all that intensity. And you would never see, maybe you've seen him do some leg raises, but he's never ever done any.
No.
He wouldn't sit there doing crunches.
He doesn't need to.
He doesn't need to, right? Because he's overloading so much and using that core anyway. Mm-hmm. How much of your core are you using when you're running, sprinting?
Loads.
Loads, right? Mm-hmm. That's why you get sprinters with.
Yeah. I mean, how much of your core are you using when you do heavy, high intensity training that you breathe heavy, you breathe really heavy?
Yeah.
Think of a spinning class.
Yeah.
Right? So you come out of it and your upper stomach muscles, they ache because you breathe so fast.
Yeah. So even when you're
so
breathing.
you're utilizing them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So it's different to, putting lots of weight on them.
Yeah.
But see, I find the best, like I was swimming last night, we're doing this butterfly kick on our back with fins.
Yep.
That kills my abs. Yeah. Absolutely destroys them.
It's funny because I don't know if you'll notice as well, what I've noticed as well is like, say bodybuilders' abs. I know genetics plays a huge part, but the way they form is so different to the athletes.
Yeah.
You can just see.
It's functional, isn't it?
Yeah. It's so much more functional.
Yeah.
Whereas the bodybuilding ones is just, they look really tighter and blocky. Whereas the athletes, it's kind of more spread out.
Yeah.
To, I guess.
But if you think about what the bodybuilder is trying to do,
yeah.
Right? They squeeze them to make them pop out because they show more.
Yes.
Whereas the athlete, they try to do the sport.
They try to do the sport. If not, open up more.
Yeah.
And utilize, be more efficient with the movement. Yeah.
I say there's not like, people will probably kind of see Cristiano Ronaldo doing tons of them.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Provided he's not. But what I'm saying is like his strength of the core is not gained by doing all those sit-ups he's doing, by the rest of the training he's doing.
Yeah.
So for aesthetic reasons, feel free.
I think with him, someone like him is just like straight old school hard work. Right?
He's a freak, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a freak. And see, his genetics is ridiculous, for example.
Yeah.
Like everyone's like, oh, how old's he now? He's 36, I think. 36 or 37, yeah. Everyone's like, oh, because they do, you see memes online where they like compare 36-year-old, say, Ronaldo versus Rooney. I'm like, fuck. That's got nothing to do with Rooney not being a hard worker. He probably wasn't as hard working as Ronaldo at training, but genetics there is playing a huge part, right?
Yeah, genetic plays a big part, but I know a bit on the inside of that, and his work ethic wasn't the same.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and if you get to that level, maybe 3-4% change in a work ethic makes a big difference.
Okay, makes sense. Okay. All right, a few more questions. We'll go. I'm trying, basically, I don't want to ask you questions where I know you can't answer because you're going to need more like detail. Like someone's gone here. Oh, okay.
Fire away, I'll say no.
Okay,
if I don't know.
Actually, no, this might be a good one. Is it worth getting steroid injection for bulge disc, Scalia L4, L5?
General answer, no.
Okay.
So a steroid injection, so steroid is an anti-inflammatory.
Okay.
So if you've got an inflammatory problem into and around the disc, it will be very beneficial. Okay. The biggest question is the disc bulging an issue?
Okay.
Okay. So, and if we're looking at the research, we know that disc bulges is they're not really that important. Okay. When it comes to pain. Okay. They're good for like cushioning your bones in your back.
Yeah.
They bulge. They go back. So, so they don't, sorry, let's change that because it's the wrong terminology. So they don't slip in and out, okay? But they bulge, and like a cut you can carve your arm, the body heals it, okay? So it closes down and they do heal really well.
Yeah.
So we know that probably past the age of 2025, over 85-90% of us have some sort of disc bulging somewhere, okay? And that's normal.
Yeah.
That's part of getting older. Okay. But they don't relate to pain.
Okay.
Okay. Very, very rarely a disc correlates with pain. Very, very rarely. Less than 1%.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
So to have a steroid injection on the disc, if you get some relief from it, it's probably not the disc, it's the inflammation that's around it. And it could be from a number of reasons. Okay, so it could be from like an incorrect movement pattern that puts pressure on the area, creates the inflammation there.
Could stress be one?
Stress could be one, yeah. So stress, like if you look at somebody with stress and you do like a blood analysis, you're going to find very high inflammatory levels.
Okay.
Right, very high inflammatory levels. So, and everything, yeah. But in terms of inflammation, then it kind of ramps right up again like that radio button I was telling you earlier. So my advice to that person wouldn't be rather than have an injection, just get assessed properly. Okay, make sure you
go see Nick.
I'm not fishing for business, but
yeah, I know.
you know, just make sure that the disc is the problem and there's inflammation around it.
Yeah.
Okay, the scan does not tell you that. Okay, you need to match the scan information with a proper clinical analysis.
Oh, okay, right.
Okay, so go through movement control and some palpation, and so just to kind of clear out, the scan is not a diagnosis. It's a diagnostic tool. It gives you bits to add to your picture.
Okay, amazing. I know Nick's not here fishing for business.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Nick's not fishing here for business, but go see him. Like, he's the best.
Thank you.
You are. Okay. 15 weeks PP and pelvic floor, still not right. Especially,
postpartum. Okay.
Yeah, especially when exercising. Should I be worried?
No, but what a big question is the pelvic floor work you're doing correct?
Okay.
Okay, is the technique good? Is it functional? Is it serving a purpose, or is it just a case of squeezing your pelvic floor muscles?
All right.
Okay, if you just do that, you need to probably reevaluate what you're doing. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
It does make sense.
No, I mean, 15 weeks, I mean, depends on a lot of things. Postpartum is, you know, the delivery, the size of the baby, your own physique, and your pre-pregnancy conditioning, all those things play a big part. So, but I wouldn't panic now.
Okay.
But certainly evaluate what I'm doing.
All right. I like this one. Any value in getting sports massage one a month to prevent injury?
To prevent injury, again, it depends on how much you do in terms of training.
Yeah.
As a rule, no.
Yeah.
For the same reason that I said about the stretching earlier. So the massage gives you some temporary relief. I use it, okay? But I massage people that tend to be more specific on the injury side rather than everywhere. Yeah. And the idea is not to cure and it's not to prevent, it's to give you a window to go and do the right things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, if you a professional boxer and you're in a boxing camp, or sorry, in a training camp before a fight, and you train 4 times a day, then to get that recovery element of it, I can't see any problem with that. Okay, but in terms of preventing injuries, massage alone, no. So it's all about the balance and training.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Now, if you you like recreational training like I am, and you're training like 4, 5 times, 6 times a week, and you've got a full-time job and you've got a family, and you go for a massage, what you probably get from it is the relaxation element of it, rather than the specific muscle input.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a very helpful thing.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yes, a lot of sense. Because example of that is I wanted to get back to jits ASAP. Came to see you. You've done some hands-on work.
Yeah.
To like release give me that window, and then I've been hitting the gym since, and then I'll be ready for jits. Well, I got that reassurance from you, so I'll go tomorrow.
Sounds good.
I'll go tomorrow. Last one. How to overcome the fear of re-injuring yourself? Okay.
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah, really good.
From my point of view, is a case of, it's called graded exposure. So you go back towards the way you injure yourself. So, for example, if we get, let's say a classic one is a footballer with a cruciate ligament injury. Okay. Most of them are non-impact. So you plant your foot, your body twists one way, the knee goes the other way, it collapses in between. And what you find is a lot of times is that fear of doing the same movement. Okay. So what I tend to do is break the movement down. So let's say if you're just going to change the direction, you might be a case of jumping to one side, okay, and landing, and hold that landing. You do that, but then in a different session or in a different exercise, you're jumping back.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And then you say to the person, look, you've just done, you jump there and you jump back.
You did it.
That's how you did it.
Yeah.
Right? Let's do this over and over again. Okay? Now put your boots on, let's go do it on the pitch.
Yeah.
Okay? Without anybody around you. Now let's put the ball in there.
Yeah.
Okay? Now let's do it more dynamically with a cone. Okay, and then let's go back into training. But let's tell everybody that nobody's allowed to touch you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that graded exposure. It's just going to break down the scary action of movement, and
you're progressively increasing like the load, I guess. Not the load, but like slowly getting back to like full fitness.
That functional element. So you're telling your brain that it's okay to do that because the brain's scared of that.
Yeah.
But if you put all the elements together, the brain is not scared anymore.
I mean, so many footballers don't, you get so many, not football, athletes in general, they don't get back to what they were sometimes because of that fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important, I guess, to do it progressively.
I'll give you, I'm not going to say his name because I don't, I wouldn't have, authority to do that.
Yeah.
But there was a guy that came to West Ham years back, and I suppose if I say the story, everybody will guess him, but I don't say his name, so I don't care.
Yeah.
So he was on a lot of money. He was the highest paid player at the time.
Yeah.
He hardly ever played, and they cancelled his contract. Probably April time.
Yeah.
So they didn't even let him finish the season. He was out for so long.
Yeah.
And he had all sorts of hip and groin and this and that and headaches at one point. It was like a disaster of, an injury record. And he was getting on a bit. And then I randomly bumped him in a restaurant in Mayfair in Langens. And we just kind of started chatting. And I was like, how you getting on? He says, yeah, good. And I was like, how's the body? He says, actually, I'm amazing. I was like, I'm right. I was like, what happened? He says, well, I finished like with West Ham and I had no club and there was no transfer window.
Yeah.
So he says he went back to his home country.
Yeah.
And he said, I just started to get fit, but I wasn't doing football training. So he went to the gym, he built his strength, he built his, whatever. And he agreed to go to the MLS the following January.
Mm-hmm.
And he says for the first time in his life, he had time to work on his body.
Okay.
Right? So where I'm going with this is he says he had a hip surgery, and in order to get back quickly, he adapted the way he was playing. So like a 50-50 ball on his right leg, he wouldn't go for it. He will step back and try to defend rather than challenge it.
Yeah.
Just one example.
Yeah. And
if you look back, because I went and kind of searched some of his videos, and it was so obvious when he mentioned it. By the time we didn't pick up, he just thought, well, he plays this way.
Okay.
Right? So then, obviously, he had this kind of 6, 7, 8, 9 months of conditioning, and he says he went to the MLS and his hip wasn't a problem. He went there in January, did pre-season, feeling fit and strong, and he had a really good season.
Yeah.
And that's time. So he didn't have the confidence to go for those challenges because he wasn't exposed to it.
Yes.
Okay. So whether it's the physios, didn't push him enough because it was him saying, I want to play, where it was the manager, like, we really need you, come back,
Yeah.
You get all these kind of different pressures and then you bypass bits, you're cutting corners.
Yeah.
And I think that's, talking about the confidence, you have to break it down and give it time.
Yeah.
And some of them might take 3 weeks, some of them take 6 months. So.
And again, it can depend on the injury, personality, how hard they work, what they do, and all of that stuff. But Nick, that was great.
Absolute pleasure.
I really appreciate your time.
No,
everyone
really
that's listening, Nick said he's not here fishing for clients, but if you do have an injury, go see him. You can find him on Instagram. I'll tag it in the post and everything. I'll put it on the bio and everything. But where can they find you?
So I've got 2 clinics. I've got one in Essex, in Brentwood, and one in the Strand in central London, both in the Virgin Actors.
And what would be the best way to contact you through?
Phone number, email,
online,
online, Instagram, Facebook. I'm not big on those things, but I'm on it. So
he's not big on them because he's actually busy treating clients.
That's a good way to finish that. Yeah.
That is literally.
I'll take it.
That is literally what you're doing. And he's like, there's been times where I've gone to him and I'm like, I think I need a scan, and he literally just touches the muscle and he can pinpoint every bloody tear I've got. It's pretty amazing, all that experience. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me. I really, really enjoy this.
Anytime. Guys, anyone that's listening to this, if you think it will help anyone, share it, subscribe to the channel. Peace and love, and I'll see you guys later.